To Monica Doyley.
Hello, hello. What a night. Thank you for coming. My name is Monica, and I am menopausal. Yes, lesbians go through menopause. And I went through it, or more accurately, it happened to me back during COVID lockdown. When the CDC said essential workers only, my ovaries listened. They were like, all right, boys, we're locking this down. We're done here. They weren't doing anything anyway. I distinctly remember getting my last period the week before the world shut down. I was on vacation, of course. And of course, I didn't know it was my last period at the time. But about a month later, I was in the middle of Walmart getting supplies when I had my first hot flash. Picture it, I was wearing a winter coat and a winter hat and glasses and a mask, and a nuclear reaction happened inside me. I thought my heart was on fire. It sort of started in the torso and went up like I was hosting the final night of Burning Man inside my own body. A little later that night, I was in bed. Sorry, this is right in your way. I was in bed and I thought, when is the last time I had my period? Now, I don't know about all of you, but I never really kept track. Is it because I'm gay? Do other lesbians keep track? Cis women who have sex with cis men keep track because of ovulation, I assume. And I guess it's really convenient to know which week you'll be blowjobbing. So I was like, holy shit, I think that was a hot flash. I haven't gotten my period yet this month. And maybe this is it. Maybe it's time for the change. And I always thought that term, the change, was really funny. Like, what's gonna happen? Am I gonna turn into a werewolf? Start snatching up kids in the woods at night? So I'm in bed on my phone, and I search perimenopause. So Google tells me perimenopause is the natural decline of reproductive hormones. Or as my dad's wife Nancy says, oh, Mons, that's just your eggs drying up. Thanks, Nancy. Mons has been a nickname as long as I can remember. My dad calls me the Mons, like the Fonz. Remember Happy Days? Hey, spelled with a Z. Not to be confused with Mons, spelled with an S, which is this fatty mound right above your vulva. Mons pubis. Not great if we're being honest. Anyway, back to my drying up. I went for my physical last year, and I had high blood pressure for the first time, which made me very nervous because with menopause comes increased rates of heart disease. So my doctor didn't make me feel any better when she said, well, you see how your face is so dry? Well, your arteries are drying up from the inside, and it's getting harder for your heart to push blood through them. Thanks, Doc. I was an EMT like 20 years ago, so I went home to do my own assessment. I grabbed the stethoscope and blood pressure cuff, and when I did, the tubes on the cuff crumbled in my hand. Just like my sad, dried up arteries. My gynecologist also noted that I was drying up from the inside and suggested I get some salve, which I did. I went right out and I got the salve and I used it for a year religiously. I went back this year, and while inside me, she says, are you using the salve? And I don't have a lot of follow-up, so I was very proud, and I said, yes, I am. And she said, well, you feel this? That's very tight. And I said, thank you. And this is very thin and dry. And I said, oh shit. Imagine me thinking on a whole year of salve application. I had no idea I had to go in up to the elbow. Meanwhile, I was putting it on like chapstick just on the lips. Nope, you gotta dig deep. I lost my watch up there last week. I also learned you gotta do your Kegels because of incontinence. Ugh, I know, I didn't even have a baby. Ugh. And every time I say incontinence, I gotta do a Kegel. Thank you. No incontinence for me yet. So far, my menopause symptoms have included the aforementioned dryness and hot flashes, night sweats, chills, temper flare-ups, and short spurts of rage. And unfortunately, a new one, breast cancer. Total drag. Stage 0, which I didn't even know was a thing. I caught it super early, best case scenario. I'm already finished my treatment, I'm gonna be okay. It was a cheap way to get applause, but I was at one of my last appointments, and the oncologist said, are you gonna talk about radiation in any of your upcoming shows? And then he quickly thought better of it and said, oh, I guess that's not that funny. And then I said, well, I have one pink nipple and one very dark brown nipple. And if that's not funny, I don't know what comedy is anymore. Yeah, one bubble gum, one raisinette. In any case, menopause really isn't that bad. For me, I love not getting my period anymore. And I think my mood swings were worse before menopause. So maybe estrogen is just not my thing. I feel free in a way I haven't felt since before I got my period. When I was 11, that still shocks me. Like, why? So young. So I was 11 and I was into breakdancing, and then I got my period and I couldn't really breakdance anymore. So that was sort of like a dream, you know, I guess killer, if you will. I could have gone places. I can only dance in moderation now. Like, I don't want to break a hip, you know? And even though I never really kept track, it's amazing not even having to think about whether or not I'll have my period before a big event or a vacation. And speaking of vacation, packing is a breeze. No more tampons, overnight pads, 47 pairs of period underwear. So now, not only is my favorite underwear safe, you know when I pass you a joint, it will not be wet. I'm very courteous, very dry. That's right, so at intermission, find me outside. Estrogen might not be for me, but cannabis is. My holes are dry as the Sahara from tip to taint. And speaking of tips, living with menopause for 4 years, I've come up with some great tips to survive, basically. And I'd like to share them with you. I've been sharing these tips with some other friends who have started the change. First, I got a cooling weighted blanket and I put it down and I sleep on top of it. And when a man asked me why I didn't just put it on me, I said, fuck off. You've obviously never had a night sweat. Because you cannot get the weighted blanket off fast enough, sir. Thank you. Secondly, do not sleep in cotton. Huge mistake. Get some wicking fabric, kind of dry fit performance. Otherwise, you'll be wringing that shit out in the middle of the night. Third, this is pro tip. Get separate bedding. If you have a partner, do not have a top sheet in the blankets. It's a lot of extra heat from some other body that you just cannot withstand. And fourth, get outside. Finally, New England winter is the perfect climate. I've been sharing these tips with other friends, but also with my wife, who's now 5.5 years younger than I and has entered the change. Has anyone here ever lived with someone going through menopause? Yeah, it's fucked, man. It is a whole other level. It is very scary times. So we'll be in the house, we keep it very cold, we're very cheap lesbians. Let's say it's 63, and I'm in a comfy, just covered in fleece. And we'll be watching a movie on the couch, and she'll turn to me and say, "Is it all of a sudden hot in here?" And I'll say, "Oh no, honey, the call's coming from inside the house. This is your Burning Man." Thanks everyone, have a good night.